In these lands, laden with so many unknown riches, hundreds of people are kidnapped by illegal armed groups every year. These groups that have been active for the past half-century are financed mainly by drug money, extortion, and the seizure of land belonging to peasants. The rural populations find themselves constantly caught in the middle as the national army and police engage these groups. In these regions, blessed with an incredible diversity of animal and plant species, more than 1 million people have been forced to leave their homes to seek shelter in towns and cities. There are countless tales of cruelty, tragedy, and despair. Their only happiness, not having abandoned their children to the guerrillas in exchange for the money that would have allowed them to survive for a while.
Pues la situación mía ahora es muy crítica porque pues nosotros nos tocó dejar todo lo que teníamos y porque pues no donamos un hijo que teníamos a la guerrilla, que él tiene 14 años, por eso fue. Y pues ahora pues la situación mía es muy crítica porque yo no encuentro trabajo y estoy enferma y pues mis niños pues es mucho el hambre que sufrimos.
La guerrilla, ellos los quieren para ellos y no más, ya ahí no hay palabra, se van o se quedan. Entonces cuando uno no quiere hacer eso, entonces dije yo en ese caso, yo me voy, yo salgo y me voy con mis hijos, me voy sin nada, pero Dios es muy justo.
In these climes where coffee grows and emeralds abound, countless children go through ordeals that no child should ever experience. Violence, murder, the kidnapping and detention of their parents in jungle camps by all-powerful drug mafias, exile, fear, a life without hope.
Sí, tengo miedo porque él me dice que donde me encuentre todo eso, pues que él no me la perdona. Pues de verdad que no es que le tenga miedo a la muerte porque estaba decidida a morirme y todo, pero de todas maneras la vida es muy bonita y uno tiene que salir adelante.
The legend of El Dorado, the Golden One, still haunts this land with its glorious past, but Colombia has an unrewarding future in store for these children. They still live in the shadow of armed conflict. Some guerrilla groups have laid down their weapons and have adopted democratic ways, but others still continue to endanger the integrity and security of the population. Among these rebels, there is one group of insurgents that still inspire palpable fear in the population. FARC is the Spanish acronym for the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, made up of only 17,000 individuals out of a population of more than 40 million. This group still poses a serious threat to the stability of the state, despite repeated assaults against them by the Colombian police and military. To achieve its revolutionary objectives, the FARC has resorted to tactics that have assured its infamy and prompted the international community to qualify their members as narco-terrorists. Among the actions that the FARC have taken against the population are car bombings, gas cylinder explosions, murder, kidnap, extortion, and military-style assault operations. Fiercely opposed to the accords signed between the United States and Colombia targeting the drug production and trafficking, the FARC have failed to respond to repeated appeals from the Colombian government. They maintain that there can be no departure from their revolutionary ideals. Ideals inspired by the life and actions of Simón Bolívar. This legendary general died in 1830 in Colombia after having begun the liberation of Spanish colonies in South America in 1813. In Santa Marta, the house in which he died is now a museum. Colombian school children are taught the life and actions of this hero, who was himself inspired by Napoleon Bonaparte before embarking on his quest to bring independence to Bolivia, Colombia, Ecuador, Panama, Peru, and his homeland, Venezuela. Today, Simón Bolívar is a military and political icon in many countries, and not only in Latin America. For the FARC, however, he's the inspiration behind their own revolution. Ricardo Palmera, alias Simón Trinidad, is a former FARC commander who never failed to equate his movement's fierce struggle with that of Simón Bolívar.
Bolívar planteó la unidad de los pueblos latinoamericanos como único mecanismo de defensa contra los otros centros de poder mundial. Nosotros levantamos esa bandera de Bolívar. Bolívar fue el precursor en la lucha contra el imperialismo. Nosotros somos antiimperialistas también. En ese sentido, nosotros nos fundamentamos entonces en el pensamiento bolivariano y en nuestra concepción marxista-leninista de los fenómenos del mundo, de la sociedad y del hombre.
Porque también mataron gente que no tenía nada que ver en esto, que le pedían dinero y no la tenían, entonces los mataban.
In 2001, the then president, Andrés Pastrana, had set as his main objective the establishment of direct links with the FARC and ELN guerrilla groups, as well as consolidating ties with the US that had been weakened under his predecessors. It was out of negotiations with the United States, Canada, Japan, and several European countries that Plan Colombia was born. This was a very far-reaching aid program over many years, with the aim of bringing back peace and prosperity to Colombia. By restoring the authority of the police and the army in rebel-controlled areas, the plan was to eradicate coca plantations and to provide alternative livelihoods for the farmers, to provide more education so as to counter guerrilla attempts at recruiting local people. There were also a host of political, social and economic projects to be implemented. But for the FARC, Plan Colombia was only a cover for the intensification of the counter-insurgency operations. In 2001, in order to facilitate negotiations, a peace commissioner was named by the government. Camilo Gómez Alzate would liaise between the guerrilla leaders and the Colombian government in the hope of finally reaching a peace accord after 40 years of conflict. He began his journeys to the heart of rebel-held territory. Here in San Vicente del Caguán, the FARC was in total control. The local police went unarmed, and the FARC went about its work of recruitment, collection of taxes, coca plantation and political meetings to which the local inhabitants were strongly urged to attend. As part of the 2001 peace process and to satisfy the main rebel demand, the army evacuated a 42,000 square kilometre area around San Vicente, creating a demilitarized zone comprising 5 municipalities. Here, the FARC ruled as it pleased. The government was determined to succeed in its plan to demilitarize the FARC and to pave the way for its future actions as a legitimate political party. Camilo Gómez could now begin his rounds of tough negotiations with the FARC leaders. This type of process had proved successful in the past, when the M19 guerrilla group agreed to lay down its arms. In 1990, the charismatic leader of M19, Carlos Pizarro, publicly renounced armed resistance and founded a political party. But he was promptly assassinated by narco-traffickers. However, his followers continued their struggle through political means. Many paramilitary groups also disarmed, but the FARC and the ELN refused to renounce violence. In 2002, President Pastrana had no choice but to announce the failure of peace talks and ordered the army to retake the demilitarized zone. The FARC returned to its jungle bases. It wanted more than the government was prepared to offer. It wanted nothing short of official recognition and revolution.
O sea, uno cuando está en la guerrilla, uno decidió a morir o a no morir.
The creation of the FARC came about during a time known as La Violencia. In 1948, following the assassination of Jorge Gaitán, the leader of the Liberal Party, the army and police brutally repressed street demonstrations and pitched battles between Conservative and Liberal Party supporters. This civil conflict claimed some 30,000 casualties. It was in these troubled times that Manuel Marulanda, a farmer from the mountainous regions of Colombia, organized a group of peasants into a private militia in order to protect themselves against the violence and injustices of wealthy landowners. With time, these peasant activists became so radicalized that they absorbed other Marxist armed groups to form the military wing of the Colombian Communist Party. The Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia was born.
De tal manera que inicialmente tenemos unos campesinos que reclaman protección. Al no encontrar esa protección en la medida en que esperaban encontrarla, pues van a irse radicalizando algunas posturas al interior de ese movimiento campesino. Va a haber una primera fractura entre liberales y comunistas, y es de esa fractura de donde van a salir las FARC, que van entonces a elaborar un discurso de carácter revolucionario con la aspiración de tomarse el poder para transformar el régimen político, económico y social del país, en lo cual pues les va a servir de fuerza inspiradora la revolución cubana.
It was in rural areas of Colombia, far from the capital and large cities, that the FARC managed to establish its authority. From humble beginnings as a private peasant militia, the FARC became a veritable fighting force with strict rules and regulations that had to be adhered to by its members. Today, the men and women of the FARC are divided into units within 64 so-called fronts. Each front has an all-powerful commander who's also in charge of instilling ideology.
Pues allá la llevan con miles de mentiras y todo, y dicen que tienen un futuro adelante, que tienen lo que ellas quieran, que pueden tener más adelante la casa, todo, sí, que si quieren, y después de que ellas si quieren ir a vivir con un hombre, pues que van, pero eso es mentira. Si alguien se mete allá es muy trabajoso para que se salga.